Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How's Tricks?
Good.
Good. We got ourselves a big crew today.
How are you?
Hey, Chuck.
Good.
How are you, Paul?
I'm hanging in there the best I can.
That's the way to go.
How you doing?
I'm
Somebody's at
hanging in. My grandchildren just went back to South Carolina after 12 weeks, so
Oh, man.
Welcome to sleep.
it's been a trip.
I'll bet.
Trying to be a
It's
school
good to
teacher.
see Michael Lynn.
Hi, Michael.
Hi there. Hello.
Mike, where's Marianne showing
Hi,
up?
Deb.
Hey, Paul.
Hey,
Mike, how you doing?
Terrific. Chuck, lots of rain here. Getting rain in Minnesota, Paul.
pardon
Miss
me?
Paxton, Mary Rain, are you there?
Well, I'm
Getting
here.
rain in Minnesota.
Okay,
that.
Miss Mary Rain. Nice to
We
hear
have plenty
your
of rain.
voice.
Hi, Mary Rain. Hi, good morning.
Morning,
Good
everybody.
Okay.
Hi, Deb.
Good morning, everyone. Goodness, look at all of you.
We have a big crowd today.
Big crowd. That's great.
Miss Barbara, are you there? I think she still can't hear us. I mean, she can hear us and can't see us, but I think
She
she
can't
is there. Yeah.
But she's here. Every-
Yeah, John and Barbara are 15404. I believe that is them.
Yeah.
Wow, look at all you faces. You're almost filling up a whole screen at home.
That's right.
We are.
And everybody has the text for today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
We can't have any new insights. My Bible margins are all filled up already.
I know. That's what I'm feeling.
All of your insights, then we'll be richly blessed.
So I just want to, just a little business before we start. I have given Deb a co-host. I will be slipping out quietly around, about 10 till 11 this morning, and Deb will take over from there. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
No.
No. Sarah doesn't want you to go.
Aw. Well, I have another meeting to start on the other computer. It's the pastors group I meet with over here, the support group. All
Some support, girl.
the support group.
We all need support.
I think you need it after the week you've had.
Oh, man.
It was crazy.
A little crazy.
Oh,
But I'm not crazy because of it.
You were crazy before, right?
You have other reasons.
I'm all straightened out now.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Chuck. Amazing to see you.
It is to you.
it is good to see you. Phyllis Parker wanted to be with us too, but she had responsibilities inside her own home. And it's a wonder Chuck is with us.
Yes, it's like so
I do know
peaceful.
what I
I
want
can't
to
believe it. I can't believe it's so peaceful.
That's right. Well, I'm ready to begin. All right. Let's begin with prayer, and then I will read and we'll observe some silence. Of course, the entire chapter of John 15 is very, very fruitful, and Bill has chosen to deal with just a bit of it. So, as always, feel free to read.
Fruit vine, it's fruitful.
What? No pun intended.
Trim vine, fruitful.
Yes. Okay. So let's begin with prayer.
She's just,
Loving God, we thank you that we can meet you where we are in our own homes, and that through technology we can be together. We praise you for that. Certainly, there is the image of the vine right here before us. Be with us now. Open our hearts and minds to Jesus' words. Amen.
Amen.
All righty. He just kind of begins in the middle. Where's verse 9? As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. I will give you whatever you ask in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another.
The word of the Lord.
Okay.
Thanks be to God.
At least 10, somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes of silence. So off we go. May you all have a blessed silent time. Kellyanne.
Gotta unmute yourself, Deb.
See. Okay, I'm unmuted.
Thank you.
Liz, I don't think you're unmuted. All right. You have to do it yourself, I think. Okay.
She will when she wants to talk. She's just.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. What popped out for you today in the text?
I have, one of the notes I have from a previous study is the fruit of a tree doesn't come from work, but from the health of the tree.
Hmm.
And this year, I have this little blue spruce in the front yard that has been puny for some time. Actually, it was puny when it was planted, and it's gotten punier. But starting a couple of years ago, I've been getting the Bartlett folks have been treating it for assorted problems. And this year, it produced these amazing purple flowers that are the baby cones. I mean, they were just amazing. They were magenta colored. And I've had blue spruces just about everywhere we've lived. And this is the first time I've ever seen these flowers.
Hmm.
And it's because that tree, I think, is being treated and is probably as healthier than any blue spruce I've had before. Jim teases me. He says, the money you're spending on that tree, you could probably buy 3 more trees. But they wouldn't have those glorious magenta flowers, which are now turning down and fading and turning into little cones. The fruit of the tree.
Terrible, right in front of your very eyes.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So the fruit of the tree doesn't come from work. Anything the tree is, oh, I'm gonna have fruit this year. It comes from the health of the tree.
It comes from the abiding, where it abides, in a way. It abides with greater health. Huh. That's very interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
So what does that say to us about our relationship with Christ?
Okay, Mary Rain's talking. Speak as directly into your phone as you can.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. What I was saying is, what does that say to us about our relationship with Christ? He obviously wants it to be intimate. He says, I've not called you servants, but friends, and I have chosen you. So it's that very intimate, very close relationship from which, through which he can work in us to manifest his fruit.
Yeah.
That's where our health comes from.
Yes.
That abiding in his love.
That's right.
And there's such a mutuality here. Jesus loves the Father. Jesus loves us. We're to love him, God, and one another. It's just this, I wrote it's just the glow flow. What we're abiding is the movement of love flowing from Father to Son to us and back again. It's just that constant flow of love. That is what we're abiding in. And that's why a tree is such a, and the vine is such a powerful image, because what flows up from the roots is what makes the fruit.
Well, I was struck with that verse 12. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Louder, Matt.
This is
Great to hear you.
Matt. Yeah. And the note in my Bible I thought was good on that. It says, this tells us that love and obedience go together.
Yeah. Love is obedience. Obedience is love.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think that I agree with Matt. I mean, that sentence to me was key here, because in order to understand what this passage is saying, you have to understand what that definition of love is. Love is not an emotional response. Love is not a lot of things that we say love is.
Yeah.
Love is how he loved us,
Yeah.
or how he loved his disciples. That is a template for love. And I think, like in the 1 Corinthians 13, the famous love passage, that's exactly what Paul is trying to do, is put a definition on that word love so that we can understand how we are fed, how we should be fed. And in that is our relationship with Christ. Christ is not there to make us feel good in a way. Christ is there to let us understand how we are best to treat one another and to go through this life. I mean, it's more serious than just an emotional response.
Yes. It has to get to our hands and feet and our words
And our heart. In our motivations, I think, is the key here. I mean, in this passage too, these branches are taken down and thrown away that no longer bear fruit. And I just did that with our orchard a couple times this spring, worried about cutting too much. But also in Paul, you know, anything that isn't rooted in the vine is a waste. And so Paul is even stronger. These aren't, I mean, it's sort of the same. These branches get burned.
Yeah.
If your actions are not rooted in the vine, they are not, they don't last.
They don't endure.
They are fantasy.
Yep. So true. So true. Anyone else?
Well, I had some other thoughts about these last verses that we talked about. And that is that I think in the first part, he talks about our abiding in God's love, that God's love to us does not depend on our goodness or our worthiness. God, but in the last part, he's talking about producing fruit, and that he's talking about the work we do, and that we did not come forward and volunteer for that work, that he chose us. We didn't march to the front and sign up. He chose us. And I think, I mean, we talk a lot about our not being worthy of God's love, but I think it's just as marvelous that God chooses us for service. Even though I am certainly unworthy to serve, and Paul talks about treasure in earthen vessels or treasure in clay pots, or I'm not only a clay pot, but a cracked clay pot. And that God would, and sometimes I even do good things, productive things. And the temptation it is to think, well, that's because of my talent or whatever. But it's because of God working through me, and God has chosen me, and in spite of my unworthiness.
Yep.
Well, I liked another aspect too. In verse 11, it talks about complete joy. In other words, the Christian way is never dreary.
That's true. Joy may be in us. Well,
And our joy comes from that connection of our being available and willing and open to His working in and through us in whatever way He has chosen and has planned for us and has created us.
mm-hmm. That's so true. The verse, where is it? It hit me in a way that it hadn't hit me. But we read scripture in the midst of our own situation. Verse 16, considering what we're going through in the next several weeks, you did not choose me, but I chose you. I was reminded of, I had already been out of out of college 4 years before I went to seminary, before the idea was even in my mind. And I was a teacher at the time, an 8th grade teacher, and it was in the spring, and I just had heard from the principal they were not going to renew my contract for the coming year. I was teaching in a Catholic school, and I think they wanted a Catholic person. But anyway, I was driving home in my cute little Volkswagen that I'd named Herbie, and I was just driving down the road, just trying to imagine what will I do next? And the thought came into the center of my head, go to seminary. And I thought, that's the craziest idea that's ever come into my head. But I lived with it, and I listened to it, and within a year, I was at seminary. And it was not my idea.
I can relate.
It came to me, I called, once I understood what tabernacle meant, my little Irving car was the tabernacle. I had heard driving down the road. And, it took a few months for me to say to some of my dear friends that were close Christians, I kind of think I might want to go to seminary. And I talked to the right people, and they encouraged me. And so there you have it. And as I was not sleeping in the middle of the night last night, I was saying to God, this is such a big change. And I haven't heard anything about that, but I said to God, I'd do it all over again. I'd do it all over again. I'd start at the very beginning and do it all over again.
Aww.
And so that is your joy.
That's right.
It's the joy He's talking about.
Aww.
And obedience that comes from obedience.
That's right. That's exactly right. Absolutely.
And to our benefit.
Well, to mutual benefit. Mm-hmm.
I don't think lots of times we do the things that we think we're going to do. I had no idea I was going to go to seminary either. And it didn't feel like that's what I was going to do. And I'm saying I'm not going to do that. And look where I ended up. It is a choose.
Mm-hmm.
To say, was talking about going to seminary. If you can do anything else, don't go to seminary.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you can call to go to seminary, you'll know.
That's true. And it's very true for us that go to seminary, but the fact that God chooses each one of us is equally true. That
for what
work that was laid upon us. But we all chosen to learn to love one another. And I don't think Christ here was talking about just the priesthood. It didn't even really exist yet.
Either. I didn't mean that.
I didn't either in sharing mine, and I just had to clear that up for myself as well. But we are all chosen, and I think all of us have a sense that God has called us to this or that. So, yeah.
I think that's what gives us the joy and makes us happy in what we're doing to serve, whatever way it is.
That's exactly right. Like Paul Humphrey called numbers for a life.
There's another little thing about my tree I want to share.
Mm-hmm.
This little tree is not it's a beautiful tree. All trees are beautiful. It is not a symmetrical, gorgeous tree. It's got spots that are missing. It's kind of lopsided. It's not planted in exactly the right space for a tree of its type, but it's still bearing fruit.
Mm.
And even though we may be in uncomfortable places, we may be flawed. We are flawed. We're all flawed, and we're all in uncomfortable places, certainly right now. That doesn't prevent us from bearing fruit as long as we have that connection that with God that feeds us, as long as we're connected to the vine. And so there's not some kind of goodness in ourselves, as Malcolm said, or perfection in ourselves that's necessary before bearing fruit.
Mm-hmm.
There's simply that connection that's needed.
That's right.
There's also an interesting passage here that is very helpful to me, and it's not in what we read. It's kind of the second line. Jesus says he's the vine, but then he says, every barren branch of mine, he cuts away. This is Jesus talking.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus says the barren branches, stuff that he tries, going back to what Malcolm said, these are things that Jesus tries and they just don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives them up and continues to bring fruit. I mean,
Yep.
This is helpful because we got a lot of barren branches.
Amen.
True.
I'd like to hear someone speak to this verse 17. I'm giving you these commands so that you may love one another.
I think this goes back to what Matt and Mary Rain were saying. It's in our way are not commands like we look at military commands. These are the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there's so many times in this text where, again, this flow from God to Jesus, and God is faithful and loving. Jesus is faithful and loving, and we are to be faithful and loving. God is not asking us to do anything that is not God's most true self, to move in relationship toward people in love. And that is what we are being asked to do. And God is so faithful in that. Kellyanne?
Yeah, I like this nature analogy because I did some work on I called it the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, and it was really about coveting neighbors. So that particular work doesn't really apply here, but there's something about there was something I used about green grass. Like when my neighbor moved in my backyard, her grass was all sod and it was gorgeous. And they maintained it and it was beautiful. And because of my gymnastics career, anytime I see really gorgeous grass, I just want to play on it. I want to turn cartwheels and forward rolls, and it acts like a mat. You'd be surprised. Bad grass is hard, but good grass is like a mat. And so every time I would go visit her, I would just be so envious of her grass. So you know what our grass looked like, right? So anyway, this last year, Steve started to tend to our grass hired a company. And that's huge for my frugal husband. He's very frugal. So he just decided he was going to try it. So we got with this company and we bought a plant. Well, our grass is gorgeous this year. Okay. Now, my point is to go to the tree. There was so much in this going on to have to produce this green grass, this product. And it had to be tended to, and it had to absorb the nutrients. It had to, respond. And I just think that's what God's asking of us, is like, I want to tend to you. Will you receive me? Will you join the dance? Will you be in your word? Because I know in God's glory, I can be fruitful, but not without spending time in the nourishment that our faith walk, the church, our Bibles, studies like this, my pastor's support group, those all give me that nourishment to kind of show up for the command to love one another. Because without that, I'm in my own self-centered world.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting there that he says, verse 5, apart from me, you can do nothing. It's hard for us to realize in culture where we are taught to be independent from little children, to be totally dependent on him.
I was looking at I look out my front window, and it's amazing to be in a lock-in state. But I have this, the tree that branches out from all the other things, and the little things that we don't see. I have a beautiful climbing rose bush right in the center of my front window. And I have this beautiful euonymus bush on the side. And the euonymus bush got hit by a frost. And I had just trimmed it back. And I'm saying, oh man, I'm going to lose it. And I just was looking at it the other day, and it's sprouting out new springs. So, this bush is going to fill in again. It's just amazing that this can happen. But the most amazing thing is that this rose bush is now harboring right in front of the window, in front of my eyes, a mockingbird nest with baby birds. Well, how many things? And normally I would not notice that on a busy day on my trail, even though I spend a lot of time outside. But God springs so many branches and gives us so many different roads to travel. And just because we're on one thing doesn't mean that we can't divert and go into another. And I hear Kelly Ann and Deb and Sarah all saying the same thing, that we can change our lives at any stage of our life that we can, so.
Thank you.
I've been thinking about the verse 13, where it says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. When I think of that, what immediately comes to me is the dramatic laying down of life. And what could be more dramatic than Jesus on the cross? But what immediately connotes is somebody who throws himself on a grenade or steps in front of a bus or a bullet or something dramatic. But I think when I think about that with these other verses about what Jesus is saying is a less dramatic but equally important way to structure your life, to lay down your life in a slow way without taking a bullet or throwing on a grenade, but giving your whole life to loving your fellow man. And in some ways, that's harder to do. A lot of ways, it's harder to do.
Thank you.
I think this passage is about God's direction of that part of our lives. We talk a lot about providence. God continually taking care of us. But I think that most of us, at least I can, as I look back over my life, there were a lot of situations in which it was hard for me to do what I thought God wanted me to do, because there was opposition or problems. And I'm tempted to think most about those situations, but there have just been so many situations in which God placed me in exactly the right place for me, to do things that I could do with the kind of abilities I had and the kind of limitations I had. But they were just right for me to serve. And I think there have been so many of those in my life. And that's even more remarkable than the situation where I've been in frustrating situations.
So true.
And for me, you can look at God placing those things in front of you in different ways. You can think that God is actively making a choice to place those opportunities in front of you. I tend to look at it as those opportunities are available to all of us all the time. And it is God working within us that allows us to see those opportunities. I look back in my own life, and I missed plenty of those opportunities that I should have seen, and I didn't. And I, like Malcolm, sometimes there are things I can do that are good, and I see that.
It's
So
that.
what is God wanting to show us or teach us through this coronavirus? I think that's something that we as Christians need to continue to be looking for and to learn from.
Liz has an idea about that.
Well, I was just to Mary Rain's point, I think this is the thing that is so frustrating to me now in this situation, because I want to be out there helping my friends. I want to go, I want to do, I want to be. And so when I'm being instructed, as this is saying, to love one another and put your life on the line for your friends, but I'm being told not to put my life on the line for my friends. And I'm thinking, but I want to be with my friends and I want to be with my family. And so, what was the sign this morning that Teddy showed me? It said, life is not just about dying. And I thought, bingo, bingo. And it's quality of life, not necessarily quantity of life in my mind. And so I get really conflicted. Certainly I don't want to die, and I don't want to go by this corona thingy, but at the same time, there's so much going on with people and friends that I'm missing, that I might be able to be doing something for.
Frustration this time.
But isn't that the sacrifice we're having to make? I think that's what this coronavirus is showing, is that sacrifice and our understanding of how we can love one another is not necessarily what we have always thought it is. I mean, to really love someone is in fact to stay at home and not be with people, as sacrificial as that is, because it is keeping your friends safe. It's keeping ourselves safe so that this virus can be contained.
It is a way of loving. Michael?
I just think most of us are used to being really active and doing things and being able to make the obvious gesture. And inaction is perhaps the hardest thing most of us have to learn.
Yeah. It is hard.
Anyway.
Maybe some of you have seen it in the news. I heard today in Mary Rain's question, what are we learning in this? One of the ways Israel, the nation, is coping with coronavirus people that are sick but no longer really need to be hospitalized, they appointed certain hotels in the country to become Corona hotels or Hotel Corona, and they would send people there, and it's like a convalescent place for people with coronavirus. And there's this one hotel, I believe it was in Tel Aviv, that it was early on, and they didn't say, oh, we've got to send all the Orthodox here and the Orthodox here. It's a mishmash. It's Jewish people that are secular, Orthodox, and ultra-Orthodox. It is Arabs, it are Palestinians, of course, many are Muslim. And lo and behold, in that hotel, they have become friends. And this one woman who was raised a Bedouin, I think I'm getting this right, she's an Arab, and they all eat in the same dining room, and she had her tray, and she looked around and she saw all the Orthodox sitting together and all the Arabs sitting together, and she knew some English. She said, well, I think I'm going to go sit with these people because they're laughing. And they were Jewish. And by the end of the meal, they were friends. And that entire dining room evolved to the point where everyone was sitting together. And one woman in the place, she's a stand-up comic. And she said, well, I bet I could make some comedy here. And in the lobby, in the evening, she does stand-up comedy shows. And everyone is coming. People have done exercise classes. It is a miracle of people seeing that through the virus and through that situation, the walls that they have so hard worked to keep up have come crashing down. And they were even able to have a Seder, and everybody in the hotel that wanted to come came. And they originally had planned for a petition because the Orthodox people said, no, we can't have Seder with these other people. And when they all arrived and the Seder meal was set, everyone had their own Seder plate. And some of the people that were Orthodox said, we can't keep this barrier. And they moved it. And the whole room celebrated Seder together.
Amen.
And it said at the end when they sang Dayenu, which is a song we know because we've done that, everyone was up dancing and singing Dayenu. Now that, if the coronavirus can help us realize we are all one, something pretty special is happening.
Yeah, and Deb, you bring up a very good point that it's not always in the physical, right? It's in the pruning is in the thinking.
Yeah.
And the mindset for us to go out and love better. And as we sit still, I'm an extrovert like Liz and a social butterfly, like out the wazoo. Like I feed off of social. So to be still is so weird. But how can I love differently is one thing that I've been asking myself. What does love look like now in action for me while we're here? And then the other, Deb, that you just so poignantly answered to Mary Rain's question is, how do I transform my mind? Because we all have setbacks of mind on how things should look or be. That is a beautiful story for us to sit in. Gorgeous story. That's God's end game, right? That's kingdom.
That's the kingdom coming to Israel.
Nadia,
I want to say, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
In answer to Mary Rain's question about what is this teaching us, we really can't forget the people that have really laid down their lives. Doctors and nurses all over the world, medical people, have died, and it's a great loss to their families, and they have done it out of duty and service, and it's really an amazing demonstration of what human beings are capable of in caring for others.
True enough. Thank you, Paul.
I was going to point out that Nadia Boltz-Weber has a little short video on YouTube somebody sent me and I watched it. I like Nadia. He's a character. But this has been very difficult. She's a Lutheran pastor, now theologian. But anyway, this has been difficult for her because she likes to do things. And suddenly everything that she needed to do to help bring the kingdom into the world was no longer possible and was horribly frustrating for her. And this is a little video about that. Among other things she says is, it is difficult to be grateful, but gratefulness is a way of showing love. We like to be grateful, other people be grateful for us, but us being grateful is much more difficult. So
that sounds
So
good.
can we be grateful for God's allowing this virus to happen all over the world, all kinds of people, bringing people together like you described, Deb? Can we be grateful and recognize not only his sovereignty, but his wisdom that is beyond our understanding?
I think one of the things that it shows is not, I think it shows that the humans, what we have done is kind of offline. We are no longer on the good red road. We have diverted, and there are consequences to sin, using biblical term. There are consequences to what we as a human group have done. And the ability of this virus to disable what we have created says something about what we have created.
There are a lot of lessons to be learned, and I think we'll be learning them and reflecting on this for a very, very long time. And as we do it with God's insight, maybe some of what we learned will remain with us and be permanent. So
May it be true.
May it be true indeed.
I compare this a little bit to as an individual. If an individual is diagnosed, gets like a cancer diagnosis or a very serious illness, it's not anything anyone would want, but it does have transformative opportunities. I feel like as humankind has been given a very serious diagnosis. And there are transformative opportunities. The hard part will be hanging on to the lessons when it's safe again, the way it is to hang on to those when you're well again, because
that's right.
It's just an ongoing process.
And that's why the Bible is filled with the word remember. Remember.
I think
I just want to say that I think talking about the questions that we've been talking about this morning and seeking for how God is directing our lives in this unusual time is really important. A lot of people right now are going through a kind of low-grade depression because they can't do what they want to do. That prevents them from doing even the things they can do. And it's wrestling with, how is God directing our lives? How is God directing my life, even right now? And where is God in all of this? Is for me absolutely necessary. In moving ahead, and maybe God is certainly asking me not to get involved in crowds, to isolate myself to some extent, or the other things that God is asking me to do. I think asking those questions is really important
Very important.
for all of us now.
I agree. I think we're running out of time. We have had a very fruitful let's hold silence for just a few minutes and try to put within our souls and our memory what it is that we want to remember and where it is the questions are just rubbing us. Asking questions is a very good spiritual practice and living with that uncertainty until we find a suitable answer or direction. So let me silence us just for a few minutes and then we'll come out of that and close. Okay. Any final comments? I know we could just talk about this all day, but
In terms of Liz's question, or comment that I was thinking about, I think I'm not going to change culture, but one thing I can do is to look for new opportunities to serve God under these new circumstances, day by day, not live for the time when this thing will be over, rather than look for the opportunities that are there. And these will not be very recognizable to me because they're different, they're new. But looking hard for them is something that I think I need to do. Because I too, like Malcolm, I think this is important. I think it's really important. And not only do I think about it, but I find ways to do what I ought to do under these circumstances.
that is very helpful. And it reminds me of a passage in Jeremiah when he was railing about being in exile and he was so unhappy and how long, oh Lord, will I have to be here? And God's answer to him was, plant a garden, plant a vineyard, pray for the people with whom you live. God was saying, just root yourself right there in that situation in which you find yourself that you don't like, but be a blessing right there. And you will be blessed. I love that bit of Jeremiah. So I do think there are blessings to be had. And of course, who wants depression? We need to reach out and hold on to people, our loved ones. And it hurts not to be able to hug our loved ones. It just plain hurts. It hurts all of us. But we can love too. Our love is being shown in very, very strong ways as well. Is there anything else anyone would like to say?
I would just like to say that I am so grateful for everything that's been said this morning.
Oh, me too.
It has really,
Emmy, do you have new things to put in your margins?
There's no room.
COVID notes.
Need a bigger Bible.
Oh, I can't get another Bible. This one has too many notes in it.
Sticky notes on it. But one day we all will be in Bible studies or lectios, and this passage will come up, and we will say, I remember listening to this text in the midst of the coronavirus. That will happen. And that'll be a good day. And I like that doggy. All right, my dear friend.
Hugs.
Yes?
Hugs.
Hugs.
Love to you all.
Oh, hugs. I thought you were doing
No, hugs.
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 Everyone. Absolutely. Oh, there's another hugger.
Yeah, I got
Dylan.
mine staying right here beside me. It's on the couch.
Oh, up there. It was awesome.
Oh, Dylan shows up again.
Dylan. Okay, let's see if Dylan will add to our prayer. Let's close with prayer. Thank you, loving God, that you have spoken so beautifully and strongly to us this morning. We thank you that your word is alive and still feeding us, nurturing us, rooting us in your love. Help us to learn new ways to love in this unpleasant season. And in all that we do, may we praise you and love you and love one another. And now, as Jesus told us, we pray together. Our Father,
who art in heaven,
thy
hallowed be thy name.
will be
Thy
done
kingdom come
as
on earth as it is in heaven.
us this
Give us this day our daily bread.
our sin,
Forgive us
as we forgive us, and lead us not into temptation.
not into temptation,
Deliver us from evil,
deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom
and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
All right, my dear friends. Thank you all for your wonderful insight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
You are welcome.
Will we
Bye-bye.
meet next week?
See ya.
Be sunbeams today.
Sarah.
Thank you all.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we gotta be sunshines today.
That's right.
Yeah, it was nice to be with you all today. I just, the last 12 weeks, coronavirus has kind of changed my life. I didn't know what it was going to do. And all of a sudden, I had 3 grandchildren for 12 weeks. And I was tutoring school at this time online, which I'm not very good at because I'm not computer literate. And but it's been an experience. But now the house is back to normal.
Oh, yeah, I bet you're missing them.
My wife,
I miss them now.
yeah, my wife, they put her as a, what do they call them? At-risk person, so she can't work anymore. So for the first time in about 40 years, we're here 24/7,
Oh.
which is a whole new experience.
Oh, my Lord. Well,
Life has really changed things.
no, and we'll continue to do that. That's awesome.
But your grandchildren's loss is our gain, Chuck.
Right.
It is good to see you.
Really good to see you.
It's good to be back. Yeah.
Take care.
Everybody,
Bye.
You all take care, Michael. Good to see you.
Everybody.
all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Oh, it's so great to see you. Bye, Chuck.
Bye, Deb.
Blessings. I'll just end the meeting. Just find the button that says end, Chuck.
I don't know where that is.
Are you on a computer?
Yeah.
If you just kind of put the cursor down at the bottom, it'll pop up.
Stop video.
No, don't hit that. It says end in a little red box.
Says leave. Okay.
That's it. That's
All right.
all right.
Okay. See ya.
Yes. Bye-bye.